The small town of Pinecrest wasn't known for anything special. It was the kind of place where everyone knew each other, where the local diner served the same specials every week, and where dreams often stayed just that, dreams. Tucked away on Maple Street lived the Chen family in a modest two-bedroom house with faded blue paint and a small front porch where wind chimes played gentle melodies on breezy afternoons. Li and Min Chen had moved to Pinecrest 15 years ago with hopes of giving their children better opportunities than they'd had growing up. They worked long hours, Li at the local factory and Min cleaning houses for families on the wealthy side of town. Despite their tight budget, they managed to save a little each month, tucking away dollars and coins in a glass jar hidden in their kitchen cabinet. Their daughter, May, was 7 years old when she first showed signs of something special. Unlike other kids who spent their free time playing outside or watching TV, May was drawn to music like a moth to flame. She would stop whatever she was doing whenever she heard a melody, her head tilting slightly as if trying to catch every note. "That girl hears things differently," Grandma Chen would say with a knowing smile when she visited from the city. "Music speaks to her." Min noticed too. She often found May tapping complex rhythms on the kitchen table, or humming tunes she'd heard just once at school or on the radio, never missing a note. It wasn't just that May loved music, it seemed music loved her back. The Chen family didn't own a piano. They couldn't afford one. But May would press her fingers against the kitchen table, pretending it was a keyboard, playing silent songs only she could hear. One evening, Lai came home later than usual, his face beaming despite the exhaustion in his eyes. "I have a surprise," he announced, his accent thickening with excitement. Min looked worried. "We need to be careful with money, Li. The roof still needs fixing before winter." "This couldn't wait," Li insisted. He pulled out his phone and showed Min a photo of an old upright piano. "Mrs. Wilson from the church is moving to Florida. She offered to sell it for almost nothing because it needs some work." I said yes. Min's eyes widened. "How will we pay for it?" Li glanced toward the kitchen cabinet where their savings jar sat. 3 years of saving. It's time to use it for something important. The next day, the piano arrived on a borrowed truck. It was old and scratched, with yellowed keys and a slightly wobbly bench, but to May, it looked like treasure. She approached it cautiously, almost reverently, her small fingers hovering above the keys before pressing down on middle C. The sound filled their tiny living room, and May's face lit up with a joy her parents had never seen before. "Can I try?" she whispered. "It's yours," Li said, his voice catching slightly. "We got it for you." What happened next surprised everyone. Instead of randomly pressing keys as most children would, May sat on the bench, adjusted her posture, and began to play. Not a complicated piece, just a simple melody she'd heard on a commercial. But she played it perfectly, her tiny fingers finding the right keys as if she'd been taking lessons for years. Min gasped. Lee stood frozen, watching his daughter transform before his eyes. "How did you know how to do that?" he asked when she finished. May shrugged. "I just heard it in my head, and my fingers knew where to go." Word spread quickly in their small town. The Chen girl could play piano without lessons. Some called it a party trick, others a gift from God. Parents at school whispered about those prodigy children they'd seen on TV shows. Mrs. Reynolds, the music teacher at Pinecrest Elementary, heard about May during lunch duty. Initially skeptical, she invited May to the music room after school. "Play something for me," she said, gesturing to the old school piano. May hesitated, suddenly shy. At home she played freely, but here, under the gaze of a real music teacher, doubt crept in. "I don't know how to play properly," she admitted. Mrs. Reynolds smiled gently. "There's no right or wrong way to start. Just play whatever comes to mind." May closed her eyes for a moment, then began to play a folk song her grandmother had sung to her as a baby. The melody was simple, but the emotion in her playing, the slight pauses, the gentle crescendos, spoke of an understanding far beyond her years. When she finished, Mrs. Reynolds was quiet for a long moment. "May," she finally said, "would you like to learn more about reading music and proper technique?" May nodded eagerly. "I can't afford lessons," she said, repeating what she'd heard her parents discuss. Mrs. Reynolds considered this. "What if we meet once a week after school?" Not formal lessons, just guidance. And so began May's musical education. Every Thursday she stayed after school for 30 minutes. Mrs. Reynolds taught her how to read music, proper finger positioning, and basic theory. May absorbed everything like a sponge, often mastering in one session what took other students weeks to learn. At home, May practiced constantly. The old piano became the center of their household. Min would cook dinner to the sound of her daughter's playing. Leah would sit in his armchair after long shifts, eyes closed, letting the music wash away his fatigue. Despite her growing skills, May remained shy about performing for others. When relatives visited and asked her to play, she would often refuse, her cheeks burning red with embarrassment. "Why won't you play for Uncle Jin?" Min asked once after an awkward family dinner. "He came all the way from Chicago." May stared at her hands. "What if I make mistakes? What if I'm not as good as everyone thinks?" Lee knelt beside her. "Making mistakes is how we learn, little bird. And you don't play to be good. You play because it makes your heart happy." May considered this. "When I play for other people, it feels different. Like they're waiting for me to do something amazing." "Then play for yourself," Lee suggested. "Pretend no one else is there." As time passed, May developed her own relationship with music. She didn't just play songs, she lived inside them, adding her own flourishes, changing tempos, mixing classical pieces with pop songs she heard on the radio. Mrs. Reynolds called it improvisation and said it was a rare gift. By the time May turned 10, their small town had grown used to her talent. She was just the Chen girl who plays piano, her gift becoming as ordinary as the changing seasons. A few times Mrs. Reynolds suggested entering May in competitions or applying for special music programs in the city, but the family couldn't afford the travel expenses or registration fees. "She can still enjoy music," Min would say. "Not every talent needs to be on display." Lee sometimes disagreed. What if she could get scholarships? A better education? But May herself seemed content with her after-school sessions and the freedom to play at home. The piano became her refuge, the place she went when schoolwork was frustrating or when she argued with her brother, or when the world felt too big and noisy. One day, Mrs. Reynolds didn't come to school. The substitute teacher explained that Mrs. Reynolds had fallen and broken her hip. She would be out for several months. May was devastated. Her 30 minutes of guidance each week had become essential to her progress. Without it, she feared she would stop improving, maybe even forget what she'd learned. That evening, she sat at the piano but didn't play. Her hands rested on the keys, but no music came. "What's wrong?" Lee asked, noticing her silence. "Mrs. Reynolds is hurt." "There won't be any more lessons." Lee sat beside her on the bench, which creaked under their combined weight. "Show me what you learned last time," he suggested. "You don't know about music, Dad." "No," he admitted, "but I know about working hard and practicing. Show me and then practice it 10 times. That's how I learned English, repeating and repeating until it stuck in my head." May began to play a Chopin piece Mrs. Reynolds had introduced, stumbling over a difficult passage. "There," Lee said. "That part. Do it again, but slower." May played the passage again, more carefully this time. "Again," Lee insisted. After the 5th repetition, her fingers moved smoothly through the once troublesome notes. Lee smiled. "See? You don't always need a teacher. Sometimes you just need patience in these." He tapped her fingers gently. For the next few weeks, May developed a new practice routine. She would play pieces she already knew, then tackle the sheet music Mrs. Reynolds had given her, working through difficult sections note by note. When she got stuck, she would close her eyes and try to hear how the music should sound. Without realizing it, May was developing an independence that would serve her well in years to come. She learned to be her own teacher, to listen critically to her playing, to recognize when something sounded right or wrong. By the time Mrs. Reynolds returned to school 3 months later, leaning on a cane, May had not only maintained her skills but improved them. "You've been practicing," Mrs. Reynolds said with surprise after hearing May play. "Every day," May confirmed. "Dad helped." Mrs. Reynolds raised an eyebrow. "Your father plays?" "No," May smiled. "He just reminded me that hard work matters more than talent." As she entered her teen years, May continued to grow as a musician, though few outside Pinecrest knew of her abilities. She played for church events sometimes and at school talent shows, but mostly she played for herself, developing a style that was uniquely her own, technical yet emotional, structured yet free. What May didn't know was that life had a way of creating unexpected opportunities, and that her quiet gift was about to find a much bigger stage. But that would come later. For now, she was simply a girl who loved the piano, playing in a small house in a small town, her talent blooming in relative obscurity like a rare flower in a hidden garden. 10 years passed quickly in Pinecrest. The seasons changed, people came and went, and the small town remained largely the same, except for Mei Chen, who had grown from a shy child into a thoughtful young woman of 17. The old upright piano still stood in the corner of the living room, its wood more scratched now, a few keys slightly yellowed with age, but under May's hands it still sang beautifully. Her playing had evolved over the years, becoming something remarkable, though few outside her family and neighbors ever heard it. After graduating high school with good but not exceptional grades, May had taken a part-time job at the Bluebird Cafe in town. She worked morning shifts, serving coffee and homemade pastries to locals, saving every dollar she could for community college classes. Her dream was to study music theory, though she kept this mostly to herself. College is expensive, she'd overheard her parents discussing late one night. Even community college. Perhaps she should look for full-time work instead. The next morning, May had quietly asked for more hours at the cafe. Her manager, a kind-hearted woman named Rita, had agreed immediately. "You're my best worker," Rita said. "Always on time, never complaining. The customers like you, too." May smiled at the compliment but felt a familiar heaviness in her chest. Everyone liked her well enough, but no one really saw her. Not completely. At the cafe, she was just a reliable worker. At school, she had been a quiet, average student. Only at the piano did she feel fully herself, fully alive. On a warm Thursday in May, May arrived for her shift at 6 a.m. as usual. She tied her apron, pulled her long black hair into a neat ponytail, and began the morning routine. Brewing coffee, arranging pastries, wiping down tables. By 7, the regulars started trickling in. Mr. Holt, who always ordered black coffee and a blueberry muffin. Mrs. Perkins, who needed extra cream. The construction workers from the new development on the edge of town. May moved efficiently between tasks, her mind elsewhere. Last night, she'd been working on a Bach prelude, struggling with a particularly difficult passage. As she wiped tables, she found herself humming the melody, her fingers tapping out the rhythm on the cloth. The bell above the door jingled, pulling her from her thoughts. A woman walked in, someone May had never seen before. She stood out immediately in Pinecrest, where newcomers were rare. Tall and elegant in a crisp linen suit, with silver-streaked hair cut in a stylish bob. She carried herself with the confidence of someone used to commanding attention. "Good morning," May greeted her with her standard customer smile. "What can I get for you today?" The woman studied the menu board. "An Americano, please, and—" She glanced at the pastry case. "One of those almond croissants." "Coming right up," May said, turning to the espresso machine. As she worked, May continued humming absently, lost again in the Bach melody that had been haunting her. "That's Bach's Prelude in C minor," the woman remarked suddenly. "You have a good ear." May looked up, surprised. "You know classical music?" "I should hope so," the woman smiled. "I teach it at Westfield Conservatory." May nearly dropped the cup she was holding. Westfield was the prestigious music school in the city, about 2 hours' drive from Pinecrest. It was the kind of place people like her could only dream about, where gifted musicians from around the country competed for scholarships and went on to perform in world-famous orchestras and concert halls. "You're a professor?" May asked, handing over the Americano. "Dr. Grace Fletcher," the woman confirmed, offering her hand. "I'm the chair of the piano department." May wiped her hands quickly on her apron before shaking Dr. Fletcher's hand. "I'm Mei Chen. I just work here." Dr. Fletcher took a sip of her coffee. "And yet you hum Bach while wiping tables. Interesting combination." May felt her cheeks warm. "I was practicing it last night. It's still stuck in my head. You play piano?" There was genuine interest in Dr. Fletcher's voice. "A little," May replied automatically. It was her standard response whenever anyone asked about her music. Downplaying her abilities had become a habit over the years, partly from modesty, partly from the fear of seeming boastful. Dr. Fletcher raised an eyebrow. "Bach's preludes aren't exactly a little. They require technical skill and emotional maturity." May busied herself wiping the counter. "I've been playing since I was 7, self-taught mostly. My elementary school music teacher gave me some lessons, but she retired years ago. Dr. Fletcher took another sip of her coffee, studying May over the rim of her cup. Self-taught Bach. Now I'm intrigued. Just then, the morning rush began. A group of office workers from the small insurance company down the street came in, all wanting complicated coffee orders. May turned away to help them, grateful for the interruption. Talking about her playing with a real music professor made her uncomfortable, as if she were pretending to be something she wasn't. When the rush finally subsided, May noticed Dr. Fletcher was still there, sitting at a corner table with her laptop open. The woman glanced up and waved May over. "I hope I didn't embarrass you earlier," Dr. Fletcher said as May approached. "Musicians can be touchy about their playing, especially the talented ones." May shook her head. "I'm not really a musician. Not a real one, anyway." "What makes someone a real musician?" Dr. Fletcher asked, closing her laptop. May thought about it. "Training, performing, making a living from it." Dr. Fletcher laughed softly. By that definition, Bach wasn't a real musician for much of his life. He was a church employee who happened to write music. May couldn't help smiling at that. "The Westfield Conservatory is having an open house this Saturday," Dr. Fletcher continued. "Potential students can tour the facilities, attend workshops, hear performances. You should come." "Me?" May nearly laughed. "I could never get into a place like Westfield." "Why not?" The question was so direct, so challenging that May found herself speechless for a moment. "I don't have formal training," she finally said, "or money for tuition. And I'm already 17. Most serious musicians start much younger." Dr. Fletcher considered this. Martha Argerich didn't touch a piano until she was 5, practically ancient by prodigy standards. And she turned out just fine. She pulled a business card from her purse and wrote something on the back. "Saturday 10 a.m. to 4 p.m., that's the address. No pressure to apply or audition. Just come see what's possible." May took the card, certain she wouldn't go but not wanting to be rude. "I'll think about it," she said politely. "Do more than think," Dr. Fletcher replied, gathering her things. Bach didn't become Bach by thinking about playing. After Dr. Fletcher left, May tucked the card into her apron pocket and tried to forget about it. But throughout her shift, her mind kept returning to the conversation. What would it be like to study music seriously? To be surrounded by people who understood what she felt when she played? That evening, she mentioned the encounter to her parents over dinner. A professor from Westfield? Here in Pinecrest? Her mother looked skeptical. "Her car had a flat tire," May explained. "She was waiting for the repair shop to open." "And she invited you to visit the school?" her father asked, his fork pausing halfway to his mouth. May nodded. "It's just an open house, not an audition or anything." Her parents exchanged a look May couldn't quite interpret. "It's a 2-hour drive," her mother pointed out. "I know," May sighed. "I probably won't go." Her father was quiet for a moment, then asked, "When is it?" "Saturday." "I'm not working Saturday," he said slowly. "I could drive you." May looked up in surprise. "Really?" Her father shrugged, trying to seem casual, though his eyes betrayed his excitement. "Why not? It's just a visit. And maybe—" He trailed off, then continued more carefully. "Maybe there are scholarships for talented students." Her mother looked concerned. "Lee, we shouldn't get her hopes up." "It's not about hope," he replied. "It's about seeing what's possible, like when we left home to come here." Later that night, May sat at the piano, running her fingers over the keys without pressing them. The idea of going to Westfield terrified her. What if everyone there was better than her? What if they laughed at her playing, at her lack of proper training? But another voice in her mind whispered, "What if they don't?" Saturday arrived with a mix of clouds and sunshine. May woke early, too nervous to sleep. She changed her outfit 3 times, finally settling on a simple blue dress that her mother insisted made her look responsible and artistic. The drive to the city with her father was mostly silent. He focused on the unfamiliar highway, while she stared out the window, watching as small towns gave way to suburbs and finally to the sprawling city itself. Westfield Conservatory occupied a collection of elegant stone buildings in the cultural district. As her father parked the car, May felt her courage wavering. "Maybe this was a mistake," she said quietly. Her father turned off the engine and turned to face her. "May, listen to me. We didn't come all this way for you to sit in the car. Go inside, look around. If you hate it, we'll leave. But don't walk away before you even try. His words struck a chord. How many times had she walked away from opportunities because she was afraid? How many school talent shows had she skipped? How many community performances had she declined? Okay, she nodded, taking a deep breath. I'll try. The main building was imposing, with wide stone steps leading to tall wooden doors. Inside, a grand atrium buzzed with activity. Tables lined the walls, staffed by students and faculty answering questions about various programs. Posters announced upcoming performances and masterclasses. Everywhere, people moved with purpose and energy. May felt immediately out of place. Everyone seemed to know where they were going, what they were doing. She clutched her small purse, wishing she could disappear. Can I help you? A friendly voice broke through her panic. A young man wearing a student ambassador badge smiled at her. I'm just looking around, May managed to say. First time visiting? There's a campus tour starting in 5 minutes, or there's a piano masterclass in the recital hall that's open to visitors. Piano. The word caught her attention. Where's the recital hall? He pointed down a corridor. Through there, second door on the left. You can't miss it. May thanked him and headed in that direction, her heart pounding. She wasn't sure what a masterclass was exactly, but anything involving pianos felt safer than wandering aimlessly. The recital hall was smaller than she'd imagined, but beautiful. Rows of seats faced a stage where a magnificent grand piano gleamed under soft lights. About 30 people were already seated, watching as a student played while a professor offered comments. May slipped into a seat in the back row, hoping no one would notice her. On stage, Dr. Fletcher was the professor giving the master class. She paced as she listened, occasionally stopping the student to suggest different phrasing or fingering. Music isn't just notes on a page, she was saying. It's a conversation between the composer and the performer. You must have something to say when you play. May leaned forward, absorbing every word. For the first time that day, she felt like she belonged. May sat transfixed as the masterclass continued. Dr. Fletcher worked with 3 different students, each playing pieces that May recognized but had never attempted. The level of skill in the room was intimidating. These students had clearly been training for years with professional teachers, not fumbling through self-taught lessons on an old upright piano. That concludes our masterclass, Dr. Fletcher announced after the 3rd student finished. There's a short break before the faculty demonstration in 15 minutes. Please feel free to look around the department or get refreshments in the lobby. People began to file out, chatting excitedly about the performances. May remained in her seat, unsure where to go. Part of her wanted to slip away and find her father, to tell him she'd seen enough and was ready to return to the familiar comfort of Pinecrest. But another part, a stronger part, kept her rooted to the spot, hungry for more music. You came. Dr. Fletcher's voice startled her. The professor had spotted May in the back row and was making her way toward her. May nodded, suddenly tongue-tied. What did you think? Dr. Fletcher asked, sitting in the empty seat beside her. It was, May searched for the right word. Intimidating. Dr. Fletcher laughed. Good. Music should intimidate us a little. The greats certainly intimidate me, even after 30 years of teaching. This confession surprised May. You get intimidated, but you're an expert. The day I stop feeling humbled by Bach or Mozart is the day I should retire, Dr. Fletcher said. Now, would you like a tour of the piano facilities before the faculty demonstration? Most visitors are already wandering around. May glanced at the emptying recital hall. Sure, thank you. Dr. Fletcher led her through a maze of hallways, pointing out practice rooms where students could be seen through small windows, diligently working on pieces. Each room contained a piano far nicer than May's old upright at home. We have 28 practice rooms for piano students, Dr. Fletcher explained. Most are available 18 hours a day. 18 hours? I repeated, amazed. Some students would sleep here if we let them, Dr. Fletcher smiled. Dedication is never in short supply at Westfield. They passed a large room with several pianos. This is our group instruction space, Dr. Fletcher continued. For theory classes and collaborative work, May peeked in, trying to imagine herself sitting among other students, learning things she'd always wondered about but could never find answers to in the few music books at Pinecrest's tiny library. And this, Dr. Fletcher said with evident pride as they reached a set of double doors, is our crown jewel. She pushed open the doors to reveal a magnificent concert hall, much larger than the recital space where the master class had been held. Rows of plush seats faced a stage where 3 grand pianos gleamed under soft lights. The ceiling soared above them, and the walls were paneled with wood that seemed to glow with a warm amber hue. "Westfield Hall," Dr. Fletcher announced. "Perfect acoustics. Everyone who performs here says the room itself feels like a musical partner." May stood in the doorway, awestruck. "It's beautiful. Would you like to see it from the performer's perspective?" Before May could answer, Dr. Fletcher was already walking down the center aisle toward the stage. Hesitantly, May followed. "Up you go," Dr. Fletcher encouraged, gesturing to the short set of stairs at the side of the stage. "I don't think I'm allowed." "You're with me," Dr. Fletcher interrupted, "and I'm inviting you." Heart-pounding, May climbed the steps and found herself on stage, facing the empty auditorium. The perspective was dizzying. Hundreds of seats staring back at her, waiting to be filled with people who would stare just as expectantly. "Terrifying, isn't it?" Dr. Fletcher said, coming to stand beside her. May nodded. "Now the piano," Dr. Fletcher continued, moving toward the center instrument. "This is a Steinway Model D Concert Grand, the best of the best." May approached cautiously, as if the piano might disappear if she moved too quickly. It was significantly larger than her piano at home, its black surface polished to a mirror shine. "Go ahead," Dr. Fletcher urged. "Touch it." Slowly, May reached out and pressed middle C. The note resonated through the hall, rich and full in a way her upright piano could never match. She quickly pulled her hand back, almost afraid of the sound she'd created. "It won't bite," Dr. Fletcher said with amusement. "Try again." May placed both hands on the keys and played a simple C major chord. The harmony filled the space, lingering in the air for what seemed like forever. "The acoustics really are perfect," she whispered. "Play something," Dr. Fletcher suggested, taking a seat in the front row. Panic flashed across May's face. "Here now? Why not? The hall is empty except for me. Consider it a private concert." May looked down at the gleaming keys. "I don't have my music with me." "Play something you know by heart," Dr. Fletcher said. "Something simple, something simple." The phrase echoed in May's mind as she slowly sat on the bench, adjusting its height. What counted as simple to someone like Dr. Fletcher? Certainly not the pieces May had taught herself. "I don't know what to play," she admitted. Dr. Fletcher considered this. "Do you know Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star?" May almost laughed. "The children's song? Mozart wrote variations on it. It's a perfectly respectable melody." It seemed almost ridiculous playing a children's tune on this magnificent instrument in this beautiful hall. But Dr. Fletcher was waiting expectantly, and May didn't want to seem ungrateful for the opportunity. She positioned her fingers and began to play the familiar melody, feeling somewhat foolish. The notes rang out clearly, the piano responding to even her lightest touch with remarkable sensitivity. It was like driving a luxury car after years of pushing a rusty bicycle, the same basic action, but with an ease and responsiveness that was almost magical. As she finished the simple tune, May felt a strange sense of disappointment. This incredible piano deserved better than a children's song. This moment deserved more. Without really planning to, she began again with the same melody but added a left-hand accompaniment. Then, almost without thinking, she started to elaborate, adding flourishes and harmonies that transformed the simple tune into something more complex. Her fingers moved instinctively, finding patterns and progressions she'd discovered through years of experimentation on her old upright. The melody shifted, incorporating elements of classical pieces she knew. A hint of Chopin here, a touch of Debussy there, all while maintaining the recognizable twinkle theme as an anchor. She wasn't consciously composing. She was simply playing the way she did at home when no one was listening, letting the music flow through her without judgment or constraint. Time seemed to stop as May lost herself in the improvisation. She forgot about Dr. Fletcher watching, forgot about the intimidating surroundings, forgot about her own insecurities. There was only the music, her music, filling the perfect acoustics of Westfield Hall. When she finally brought the piece to a close, returning to the simple melody before ending on a quiet, resolved chord, May became aware of two things simultaneously. She was breathing hard, as if she'd been running, and the hall was no longer empty. During her playing, people had quietly entered, drawn by the music echoing through the building's hallways. At least 30 people now stood or sat in the auditorium, all staring at her with expressions ranging from surprise to admiration. Among them, May spotted her father in the back row, his eyes wide with astonishment. The silence that followed her final chord was absolute. Then Dr. Fletcher stood from her front row seat, a strange expression on her face, something between shock and delight. "Well," she said, her voice echoing slightly in the quiet hall. "That was not what I expected when I asked for Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star." A ripple of appreciative laughter broke the tension. May felt her cheeks burning. Had she done something wrong? Shown off inappropriately? "I'm sorry," she began. "I got carried away." "No apologies," Dr. Fletcher cut her off firmly. "Not for playing like that. Never apologize for making music that moves people." A murmur of agreement ran through the small audience. Several people were whispering to each other, gesturing toward May with curious expressions. "Ladies and gentlemen," Dr. Fletcher addressed the crowd. "This impromptu performance was not on our open house schedule, but I think we can all agree it was a welcome addition." She turned to May. "Would you please introduce yourself?" May stood awkwardly, her legs feeling unsteady. "I'm May Chen. I'm from Pinecrest. I'm just visiting today." "May is considering applying to Westfield," Dr. Fletcher added, which wasn't exactly true, but May was too flustered to correct her. A tall man in the second row raised his hand. "Dr. Fletcher, is this young lady a current student somewhere else?" "No, Professor Rivera, she is not. May is largely self-taught." This announcement caused another wave of whispers. The man named Professor Rivera looked impressed. "Well, May from Pinecrest," Dr. Fletcher said. "Thank you for that demonstration. I think you've given us all something to think about." She checked her watch. "And it seems you've also caused us to run behind schedule. The faculty demonstration was supposed to start 5 minutes ago." People began to move, some heading for seats, others reluctantly leaving for other commitments. May stood frozen on stage, unsure what to do until Dr. Fletcher beckoned her down. "That was quite an entrance you've made," Dr. Fletcher said quietly, as May joined her. "Not many prospective students get a standing ovation before they've even applied." "I didn't mean to disrupt your schedule," May apologized. "Disruption can be valuable," Dr. Fletcher replied, "especially when it challenges assumptions." She glanced over May's shoulder and smiled. "I think someone wants to speak with you." May turned to find her father making his way toward them, his face glowing with pride. "Dad," she began. He pulled her into a tight hug before she could finish. "That was you," he whispered. "The real you. The one I always hear through the walls at home." When he released her, May was surprised to see tears in his eyes. "Mr. Chen?" Dr. Fletcher extended her hand. "I'm Dr. Grace Fletcher, chair of the piano department. Your daughter has quite a gift." "I've always known," he replied simply, shaking her hand. "But no one else ever heard it like that before." Dr. Fletcher's expression grew serious. "We should talk about May's future. Would you both join me in my office after the faculty demonstration?" May and her father exchanged a look of mutual astonishment. Was this really happening? "We would be honored," her father answered for both of them. As they took seats for the faculty demonstration, May felt as if she were dreaming. This morning, she had been a cafe worker from a small town with an impossible dream. Now, people were looking at her differently, whispering about her playing, and the chair of the piano department wanted to discuss her future, all because she'd been told to play a simple tune and had finally let herself be heard. The faculty demonstration passed in a blur for May. 5 professors performed pieces ranging from classical sonatas to contemporary compositions, each showcasing remarkable skill and artistry. Under normal circumstances, May would have been completely captivated, studying their techniques and expressions, mentally filing away ideas to try later on her own piano. But today, she could barely focus. Her mind kept replaying what had happened, how she'd sat at that magnificent piano and, for once, played without holding back. She glanced occasionally at the people around her, wondering if they were the same ones who had witnessed her improvisation. Some smiled when they caught her eye, making her look away quickly. Her father sat beside her, his back straight, his expression proud but slightly dazed. Every few minutes he would pat her hand, as if reassuring himself that this was really happening. When the demonstration ended, Dr. Fletcher approached them. "My office is this way," she said, leading them through a corridor lined with framed photographs of past students and faculty members. May noticed that many of the recent graduates were pictured performing in famous venues around the world. Carnegie Hall, Royal Albert Hall, Sydney Opera House. Dr. Fletcher's office was smaller than May had expected, but warmly decorated with bookshelves full of music scores, a small upright piano in the corner, and walls covered with concert posters and more photographs. She gestured for them to sit in the 2 chairs facing her desk. "I want to be direct," she said once they were settled. "What I heard today was extraordinary." May looked down at her hands, unsure how to respond to such praise. "Not just the technical skill," Dr. Fletcher continued, "though that was impressive, especially for someone without formal training. What struck me was your musicality, your ability to transform a simple melody into something deeply personal and emotionally resonant." "She's always played that way," May's father said. "Even as a little girl. My wife and we don't know much about music, but we could tell it was special." Dr. Fletcher nodded. "It is special, and it's the kind of natural talent we look for at Westfield. Technical skills can be taught, but the instinct for musical expression, that's either there or it isn't." May finally found her voice. "Are you saying you think I could study here?" "That's exactly what I'm saying," Dr. Fletcher replied. "I'd like you to apply for the fall semester. The deadline for regular admissions has passed, but as department chair, I can recommend exceptional candidates for late consideration." May and her father exchanged stunned looks. "There would be an official audition, of course," Dr. Fletcher added, "but after what I heard today, I have no doubts about the outcome." The conversation continued, with Dr. Fletcher explaining the application process, the structure of the program, and the various scholarship opportunities available. May tried to absorb it all, but the reality of what was happening kept distracting her. This morning she had been a cafe worker saving for community college. Now the chair of the piano department at one of the country's most prestigious conservatories was telling her she had a place there. "What about costs?" her father asked, voicing the concern that had been growing in May's mind. "We are not rich people, Dr. Fletcher." "I understand," Dr. Fletcher said. "Westfield has several scholarship programs. Based on what I heard today, May would be a strong candidate for our Artistic Excellence Scholarship, which covers up to 75% of tuition. There are also work-study opportunities and external grants we can help her apply for." She looked directly at May. "It won't be free, and it will require sacrifice. But if you're willing to work hard, both at the piano and possibly at a campus job, I believe we can make this happen." May thought about the money her parents had saved for community college, about her own modest savings from the cafe. Even with scholarships, attending Westfield would be a financial strain for her family. "I need to discuss this with my mother," she said quietly. Dr. Fletcher nodded. "Of course. Family support is crucial for success in any demanding program. Take some time to think it over." She handed May a thick envelope. "This contains all the information about applications, scholarships, audition requirements, and program details. The late application deadline is in 2 weeks." As they stood to leave, Dr. Fletcher added, "Whatever you decide, May, don't stop playing. Talent like yours is a gift, not just for you, but for everyone who hears it." The drive home was different from the quiet journey that morning. May's father couldn't stop talking, his excitement bubbling over as he recounted his perspective of what had happened. "When I heard the music, I followed it like everyone else. I had no idea it was you playing until I entered the hall," he said. "And then, my daughter, my May, on that big stage making that beautiful music." He tapped his fingers on the steering wheel, clearly reliving the moment. "Dad," May interrupted gently, "we need to be realistic. Even with scholarships, Westfield will be expensive." His smile dimmed slightly. "We will find a way. Your mother and I always said we would support your education. But you were thinking of community college, not a private conservatory. Plans change, dreams grow." He glanced at her. "All these years you've been practicing on that old piano, never complaining, never asking for expensive lessons or better instruments. Now it's time for you to have what you deserve." By the time they arrived home, evening was falling. May's mother was waiting anxiously, having expected them hours earlier. Her expression shifted from relief to confusion as she took in their excitement. "What happened?" she asked as they entered the kitchen where she was preparing dinner. May's father launched into the story, his words tumbling out so fast that he had to stop and restart several times. May let him tell it, watching her mother's face as the magnitude of the day's events sank in. "Dr. Fletcher said May has exceptional talent," he concluded. "She wants her to apply for the fall semester. With scholarships, May's mother looked at her daughter, her expression complicated. Is this what you want, May? The question hung in the air. Until this morning, Westfield had been an impossible dream, not even worth considering. Now it was suddenly within reach, but the path wasn't clear or easy. I think so, May said slowly. But I'm scared. These students have been training their whole lives. What if I can't keep up? What if I'm not good enough? Her mother wiped her hands on her apron and came to stand in front of May. You have always been enough, she said firmly. Whether you go to this fancy school or not, that doesn't change. She turned to her husband. And you? You're so excited you're not thinking about practical matters. Where will she live? How will we pay for housing in the city? Books, food, transportation? There are dormitories, May's father said. And scholarships. Partial scholarships, her mother corrected. And dormitories cost money too. We've been saving for community college. This will be much more. May listened to her parents' debate. The familiar rhythm of their different approaches to life. Her father the dreamer, her mother the practical one, usually finding balance in the middle. This time, though, the gap seemed wider. I could keep working at the cafe on weekends, May suggested, and get a campus job like Dr. Fletcher mentioned. Her mother sighed. And when would you practice? These music students, they practice many hours every day, yes? May nodded. Dr. Fletcher had mentioned that most piano majors practiced 4 to 6 hours daily, on top of classes, lessons, and performances. The discussion continued through dinner with no clear resolution. Her father remained enthusiastically supportive, while her mother expressed increasingly practical concerns. May understood both perspectives and felt torn between them. After dinner, she escaped to the living room and sat at her old upright piano. Her fingers found the keys automatically, and she began to play softly, not a particular piece, just gentle improvisations that helped her think. The piano felt different after playing the Steinway at Westfield, the keys slightly stiffer, the sound thinner. Yet this was the instrument that had been her companion for 10 years, the one on which she'd discovered her love for music. There was comfort in its familiar touch. As she played, May thought about what Dr. Fletcher had said, about her musical voice being special. Was it really? Or had the professor just been kind to a self-taught girl from a small town? The doubt that had been her constant companion for years crept back in, whispering that she wasn't good enough, that she should stay safely within the boundaries of what she knew. Her playing reflected her thoughts, becoming more hesitant, more questioning. Then she remembered the feeling she'd had on stage today, the freedom of finally playing without restraint, without fear of judgment. The music under her fingers shifted, finding confidence again. Her mother appeared in the doorway, watching quietly. When May finished playing, she came to sit beside her on the piano bench. When you were very small, she began. Before we bought this piano, you used to play on the kitchen table. Your fingers would move and you would hum the music you heard in your head. She smiled at the memory. I didn't understand then what it meant. I thought all children did such things. May had never heard this story before. Did I really? Her mother nodded. Your grandmother told me it was a sign. She said music had chosen you, not the other way around. She placed her hand over May's. I have always been the practical one in this family. Someone must think about money, about security, but I never wanted practicality to silence your music. What are you saying, Mom? I'm saying we will find a way. If this school is where you need to be, then that's where you'll go. She squeezed May's hand. It won't be easy. We will all need to work hard and make sacrifices. But your father is right about one thing. Dreams matter too. May felt tears welling in her eyes. I'm scared, she admitted. What if I get there and discover I'm not special at all? What if I'm just another average pianist in a school full of prodigies? Then you'll still be May Chen, the girl who taught herself to play Bach, her mother said simply. The girl who never gave up even without proper lessons or a teacher. The girl with music in her soul. She stood up. Now show me these application papers. Let's see what needs to be done. As her mother left to get the envelope from the kitchen, May turned back to the piano. For the first time, she allowed herself to truly imagine a future at Westfield. Learning from masters, developing her skills, discovering music she'd never heard before. The path ahead was uncertain and would be difficult. But for the first time, it felt possible. She began to play again, a melody taking shape under her fingers, something new, something that expressed both her fears and her hopes. It was the sound of a door opening to a world she had only dreamed about until today. 3 years passed like the quick movements of a sonata, intense, challenging, and transformative. May's life had changed completely since that fateful day at Westfield Conservatory. The application process had been a whirlwind. With Dr. Fletcher's recommendation, May had been granted a late audition slot. She'd prepared day and night, balancing her cafe shifts with marathon practice sessions. Her parents had driven her to the city again, this time both of them coming along, sitting nervously in the waiting area while May performed for a panel of faculty members. 2 weeks later, the acceptance letter arrived along with news of a substantial scholarship. It wasn't enough to cover everything, but combined with her savings, her parents' community college fund, and a campus job, it made Westfield possible. Moving to the city had been terrifying. May had never lived away from home, never navigated busy streets alone, never been surrounded by so many ambitious, talented people. Her roommate, Zoe, was a violin prodigy who had performed with symphony orchestras since age 12. The other piano students in her cohort had resumes listing competitions won, master classes attended, and prestigious summer programs completed. May had none of these things. Just her natural talent and a determination to work harder than anyone else. The first semester had been brutal. May discovered gaps in her knowledge that her self-teaching hadn't filled: theory concepts, historical contexts, technical exercises that most students had learned years earlier. Her hands cramped from practicing 6 hours daily on top of classes. She called home weekly, sometimes in tears, wondering if she'd made a terrible mistake. "Do you want to come home?" her mother had asked during a particularly difficult call. There would be no shame in it. "No," May had answered after a long pause. "I need to see this through." Gradually, painfully, May had caught up. Dr. Fletcher, who became her primary instructor, pushed her relentlessly, but also recognized her unique strengths. "Stop trying to play like everyone else," she would say during lessons. "What makes you special is your voice, not your ability to sound like pianists who came before you." By the end of the first year, May had found her footing. Her theory grades improved, her technique developed. Most importantly, she stopped comparing herself to classmates who had different backgrounds and training. During her second year, May had won a place in the conservatory's prestigious winter showcase, performing an original composition that blended classical structures with the improvisational style that had first caught Dr. Fletcher's attention. The audience response had been overwhelming, with several faculty members approaching her afterward to express admiration. "You've found your path," Dr. Fletcher had told her that night. "Now the real work begins." The real work had proven to be even more demanding. May delved deeper into composition while continuing to develop her performance skills. She studied recordings of great pianists, analyzing their interpretations. She attended every concert she could, absorbing different styles and approaches. She collaborated with other students, accompanying vocalists and instrumentalists, learning how to support other musicians while maintaining her artistic integrity. Through it all, she worked weekends at a cafe near campus, different from the Bluebird back home, but familiar enough to feel comfortable, sending half her earnings to her parents to help with their expenses. They had refused at first, but May had insisted. "You gave up so much for me," she'd written in a letter accompanying her first payment. "Let me give something back." Now in her third year at Westfield, May faced her biggest challenge yet, her first major solo recital. Dr. Fletcher had recommended her for the Young Artists Series, a prestigious program that gave promising students the opportunity to perform full-length recitals for public audiences. It was an honor usually reserved for fourth-year students, but May's rapid progress had earned her an early slot. The morning of the recital, May woke before dawn in her small campus apartment. She had moved out of the dormitories last semester, finding that she needed more privacy and quiet for practice. Zoe had remained her closest friend, but had understood completely when May decided to live alone. May made herself tea and sat by the window, watching the city slowly come to life. Her recital wasn't until 7 p.m., but she could already feel nervousness building in her stomach. This performance mattered more than any other she had given. Not only would it be attended by the entire piano faculty, who would evaluate her progress, but her parents would be there, making the 2-hour drive for the special occasion. She hadn't been home much in the past 3 years, just brief visits during holidays and a few weeks each summer. Pinecrest had begun to feel distant, like a place from a previous life. Sometimes she wondered if she still belonged there, or anywhere. Music had become her true home. After finishing her tea, May moved to her digital piano, not as satisfying as an acoustic instrument but necessary for apartment living. She warmed up with scales and arpeggios, the familiar patterns calming her nerves. Then she played through sections of her recital program, not at full intensity but enough to reassure herself that the music was securely in her memory and fingers. Her phone buzzed with a text from her mother. "On our way. Dad says traffic good. See you soon." So proud. The simple message brought unexpected tears to May's eyes. Despite the distance, despite how much she had changed, her parents' support remained constant. They didn't fully understand the world she now inhabited, the competitive pressure, the artistic struggles, the technical challenges, but they believed in her completely. May spent the afternoon in one of Westfield's practice rooms, doing final run-throughs of challenging passages. Around 4 o'clock, she forced herself to stop. Overplaying on the day of a performance was a rookie mistake. She needed to conserve her physical and emotional energy for tonight. Back at her apartment, she showered and dressed carefully in the new outfit she had saved for months to afford. A simple but elegant black dress that allowed freedom of movement at the piano. As she pinned up her hair, May barely recognized the confident young woman in the mirror. Where was the shy cafe worker who had once been afraid to play in front of others? Who had once thought places like Westfield were for different kinds of people, not for girls from small towns with second-hand pianos? A knock at her door interrupted these thoughts. She opened it to find her parents standing there, 3 hours before the recital's start time. "We thought you might be nervous," her father explained, holding out a small insulated bag. "Your mother made dumplings." The familiar smell of her mother's cooking brought another wave of emotion. May ushered them inside her tiny apartment, suddenly self-conscious about the sparse furnishings and stacks of music everywhere. "It's not much," she apologized. "It's perfect," her mother said, already setting out the food on May's small table. "A place for you to study and create. That's all it needs to be." They ate together, May's parents filling her in on news from Pinecrest. Rita still ran the Bluebird Cafe, though she had hired a new girl to replace May. Mrs. Reynolds, May's elementary school music teacher, had asked about her often, proud that her former student was at Westfield. The Chen's next-door neighbors had a new baby. The old maple tree on Main Street had finally been taken down after last year's storm damage, small details of a life continuing without her. Yet instead of making May feel disconnected, these stories reassured her that Pinecrest remained a constant, a place she could always return to if she needed. "Are you nervous about tonight?" her father asked as they finished eating. May nodded. "A little. The program is challenging. What will you play?" her mother asked. "I'll start with a Bach prelude and fugue, then a Beethoven sonata for the first half," May explained. "After intermission, a Chopin nocturne, a piece by a contemporary composer, and then—" "And then?" her father prompted. May smiled. "And then I'll finish with my own composition. It's called Variations on a Simple Theme." Her parents exchanged a look of understanding. They knew exactly what simple theme had inspired her piece. "Dr. Fletcher says it's the strongest work I've done," May continued. "It tells the story of my journey, from Pinecrest to Westfield, from playing an old upright to performing on concert grands." She hesitated. "I hope you'll like it." "We will love it," her mother said firmly, "because it comes from you." As the hour of the recital approached, May and her parents took a taxi to Westfield Hall. The backstage area was buzzing with activity, stage managers checking lighting, program distributors organizing stacks of printed booklets, other performers from the evening's student showcase warming up in practice rooms. Dr. Fletcher found May as she was saying goodbye to her parents, who were heading to their seats in the audience. "Nervous?" the professor asked after May's parents had left. "Terrified," May admitted. "Good. Channel it into your playing." Dr. Fletcher straightened May's collar slightly. "Remember what I told you when you first came here?" May thought back. "You said that music should intimidate us a little." "Exactly. The greats still intimidate me even now." She smiled. "You're ready for this, May, more than ready." A stage manager approached. "5 minutes to places, Ms. Chen." As Dr. Fletcher walked away, May took deep breaths, centering herself. Through the curtain, she could hear the murmur of the audience filling the hall. Her parents were out there, along with her teachers, classmates, and strangers who had come simply to hear good music. When the stage manager finally nodded to her, May walked out onto the gleaming stage of Westfield Hall, the same stage where, 3 years earlier, she had been asked to play a simple tune and had responded with music that changed the course of her life. The audience applauded as she bowed and took her place at the magnificent Steinway. For a moment, she allowed her fingers to rest lightly on the keys, feeling their cool smoothness. Then she began to play. Bach came first, his intricate patterns flowing from her fingers with precision and clarity. Then Beethoven, passionate and powerful. After intermission, Chopin's Nocturne sang with poetic sensitivity, and the contemporary piece crackled with rhythmic energy. Finally, it was time for her own composition. May paused, gathering herself for this most personal part of the program. Then she began with the simple melody everyone would recognize, Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star. But this time the transformation wasn't spontaneous. It was carefully crafted, deliberately developed, taking listeners on a journey through variations that reflected May's own path, from simple beginnings to complex harmonies, from hesitant phrases to confident assertions, from echoes of traditional forms to bold new expressions. As she played the final variation, bringing the piece full circle with a return to the simple theme, now enriched by all that had come before, May felt a profound sense of completion. The journey wasn't over. In many ways, it was just beginning. But in this moment, on this stage, playing music that was uniquely hers, Machen knew with certainty that she had found her place in the world. The final notes resonated through the perfect acoustics of Westfield Hall, hanging in the air for a breathtaking moment before the audience erupted in applause. May stood, bowing deeply to acknowledge their response. In the front row, her parents were on their feet, faces shining with tears and pride. Behind them, Dr. Fletcher was applauding vigorously, nodding in satisfaction at her protégé's triumph. But it was the expression on May's own face that told the real story, the joy of an artist who had found her voice, the confidence of a musician who knew her worth, and the gratitude of a young woman who had been asked to play a simple tune and had discovered in that request the key to her future.